Region. Sorry,
Dr. Rai, I think you're on mute, but in the meantime, I would note for the record that Commissioner Williams has joined us. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I'm sorry, I was in another link, as were others.
Yes, I saw there were some technical difficulties, so hopefully others have been able to join. But you bring us to 7, and I know we're waiting on a few more. But
Commissioner Thompson was with me in another room, so hopefully she'll join as well.
Wonderful. Thanks, Commissioner Williams.
You bet.
And Dr. Rai, I think you're off mute now, so the floor is yours,
Yes.
sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, everyone who is able to join us. We had a little bit of a technical glitch. We have a new link, and we are meeting on the new link. And again, welcome to October 2025 meeting of Maryland Higher Education Commission. Since our last meeting, MHAC has approved 3 new degree programs: Hood College, Master of Business Administration in STEM; Hartford Community College, Associate of Science in Pre-Professional Health Sciences; Johns Hopkins University, Doctorate in Rehabilitation Science. Over the last 2 years, MHAC has processed nearly 1,000 academic program proposals. We look forward to hearing more about how many of these programs fall into AI, computer science, nursing, teaching, life sciences, quantum computing, and other areas highlighted in the workforce analysis report, and also in the lighthouse sector for the state of Maryland's economy. Staff from our Department of Finance and Administration will provide recommendations on MHAC's 2027 operating and capital budgets. These will include updates from the Office of Student Financial Assistance on financial aid and COMAR regulations, and a presentation on the capital improvement plan. We remain very appreciative of the Moore-Miller administration for its strong support and continued commitment to making higher education a priority. Talking about higher education, the State Plan Steering Committee is still working to design an affordable, contemporary post-secondary education system that equips every Marylander to thrive in a dynamic economy and a pluralistic democratic republic. It ensures the completion of meaningful degrees and credentials for all learners and drives innovation that strengthens the state's long-term competitiveness and civic well-being. Under the leadership of our Vice Chair Agu and Deputy Secretary Levanis and MHAC staff, I am confident that the new state plan will not only serve MHAC or a particular segment of higher education, but the entire state of Maryland. As we prepare to release the next iteration of this state plan, our focus is on aligning statewide goals with the data and tools needed to achieve them, ensuring our priorities are both ambitious and actionable. Building on our spring conversations about the future of work and innovation, we are now grounding those ideas in Maryland-specific data to ensure our policies reflect the evolving economic landscape. Deputy Secretary Levanis, alongside members of the Research and Policy Analysis team, will introduce a new 3-part performance series and use of our digital dashboards. Through these tools, we are reinforcing a culture of evidence-based policymaking, connecting a student success matrix to system-wide improvement. Assistant Secretary Dow will share information from the biannual reports that MHAC receives from the institutions. The readout of these reports comes just ahead of our 2nd annual Student Success Summit, which is taking place in Baltimore area next month. We look forward to discussing the progress institutions have made and the opportunities for growth in future. The convening will allow all leaders from all segments to chart out a path that will provide the best learning environment for students, making research and innovation a priority here in the state. Last week, I was fortunate enough to attend the Impact Maryland conference hosted by the Baltimore Manor. During a panel on higher education, presidents from UMBC, Johns Hopkins, UMB, and College Park held an optimistic discussion of higher education despite the current challenges. I too remain positive during these trying times. I am positive that tough times don't last, but tough people do. Our institutions of higher learning will persevere and thrive. In Maryland, we will continue to transform lives by ensuring that post-secondary education remains accessible, affordable, and equitable for all who want to learn. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Secretary Rye. And welcome, Commissioner Thompson. Apologies for the technical difficulty, but we're glad you are with us now.
Good morning.
Good morning. And for the record, we have 8 of our commissioners here. We have a total of 12. We are a full commission. So 7 made quorum with Dr. I think you are a Dr. Williams, Commissioner Williams, and 8. So we're over a quorum, which is wonderful with Commissioner Thompson. Again, just for the record. Speaking of record keeping, our next agenda item is review and approval of the minutes from the prior meeting from September 17th. I hope my fellow commissioners have had an opportunity to review the minutes. Before we have a motion, is there any discussion of the minutes? All right, is there a motion to approve the minutes? Thank you, Commissioner Hale. Thank you, Vice Chair Agu. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? All right, unanimously approved. And we'll now move to the business of the meeting, starting with Assistant Secretary for Finance and Administration, Newman, Jeff Newman.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioners, Secretary Rye. I'm Jeff Newman from the Finance and Administration Department. I'm going to walk through the operating budget for fiscal 2026 to review and make recommendations for the fiscal 2027 budget. I will try to be brief so that you can get through the dense and fully packed agenda. As we've done in prior years, the Maryland Higher Education Commission is charged with submitting to the Governor and the General Assembly a consolidated budget for higher education. In putting together these recommendations, the Commission may comment only on the funding priority of institutions as a whole and may not recommend against budget items approved by the USM Board of Regents or Morgan State University Board. These recommendations are made to highlight actions that are within the state plan of post-secondary education. And we're still referring to the 2022 Maryland State Plan, I believe, for the final time. And the 3 major goals in that plan were student access, student success, and innovation. In fiscal 2026, the state provided over $3.3 billion in state funds to higher education. If you want to refer to pages 22 through 26, we put this information on PowerPoint slides for your reference. It might be easier to see than the pages of the memo itself. Table 1 shows the allocation of state funds appropriated to each segment. The 4-year public institutions represent 74% of funds provided to higher education. Community colleges represent 16.7%, while funding to nonprofit independent higher education institutions represents 2.2%. State funding for programs of financial assistance administered through OSFA is 5.6% of total funding for higher education, and funding for state grants, pass-through funding, and the administration of higher education is the remaining 1.4% of the total, and you should be able to see that in your chart on page 22. The University System of Maryland and Morgan State University's operating budget requests are compared in relation to operating funding guidelines. Each Maryland institution has a set of peer institutions from competitor states, which are listed on page 14. California, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Washington. That have the institutions have similar profiles as the Maryland institutions according to their Carnegie classification. As shown in the funding guidelines table on page 23, budget decisions for fiscal 26 resulted in an overall funding guideline attainment of 78%. And you can see the range of funding guideline attainment for each institution in that table. State funding to St. Mary's College of Maryland is formula driven, and in fiscal 2026, St. Mary's College received an appropriation of $41.7 million. The local community colleges received $5.5 million through K-aid, additional grants, and retirement funding. Baltimore City College received $48.4 million, and the non-public institutions in the Sellinger program received $73.3 million. Now, I've also provided some additional information for your reference, looking at state institutional expenditures. Now, this data is from fiscal 2025 because that is the most recent year for which this the budgets have been closed and all has been accounted for. But on page, but on page 25, you can see the expenditures for the public four-year colleges and universities under the different classifications: institution, research, public service, academic support, and so forth. As you would expect, the master's institutions have higher levels of instruction expenditures, such as 41% at UMBC, whereas the research institutions have lower instruction percentages, but have research expenditures of 10 and 11% for the University of Maryland, Baltimore, and College Park, respectively. Another category to note is that expenditures for scholarships and fellowships, and all public institutions of higher education dedicate a portion of their
down in your time that you're not cutting and pasting from a Google Doc and transposing it to another.
Okay. All public institutions dedicate a portion of their institutional budgets to these expenditures, and you can see that the percentage dedicated ranges from 3% to 14% of their budgets. Table 3 on page 26 shows expenditure categories for community colleges. And as expected, the data show that community colleges spend a significantly larger portion of their budgets, ranging from 25 to 46% on instruction. They also dedicate a portion, though much smaller, and I would say that's probably related to the lower cost of community colleges compared to public four-year institutions, but they do spend a portion of their budget on scholarships and fellowships. Now I'll hand it over to Al Dorset to cover the section on financial aid. Al, are you there?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Newman. If Alex, could you share the presentation for me? And Alex, I'll need you to go to the financial aid slide. You forward over to the next slide. So thank you, Madam Chair. Vice Chair, and Commissioners for letting me present today. Just to give you an update on the FY26 budget for our scholarship and grant programs administered through the Office of Student Financial Assistance. In general, $221 million to support student aid grant programs. Of course, the demand continues to rise, driven by FAFSA reforms and outreach. So we're focused on equitable access, efficiency, and alignment with federal priorities. Next slide, please. So when we look at FAFSA misfit trends, over 16,700 FAFSA imports into MDCAPs from F125 to FY26. So an increase in FAFSA imports. The growth has been driven by our connections and increased relationships with other agencies such as Maryland State Department of Education, pushing for more FAFSA completion, as well as our nonprofit partners, specifically within the Next Generation Scholars Program. Coordination continues with the U.S. Department of Education on data transfers, where some improvements have been made, but additional improvements are still being looked to be made between Department of Education, Federal Department of Education, and the different states, including Maryland. Next slide, please. Update as of October 17th on our Howard P. Rawlings program. Overall awarded students, this includes all students awarded, regardless if they have declined or canceled their awards, as well as our current active awards. So just to reiterate, active awards are awards that are currently within the MDCAP system that have been either accepted or awarded and not accepted. Our declined or canceled awards are identified as inactive awards. However, overall a total of 15,616 students have been awarded for a total funding of $155.1 million. However, out of that, with the Guaranteed Access Program, we currently have 8,369 students awarded for a total funding of $104 million. Declined cancel, we have 3,424 students that have declined or canceled for a total of $41.4 million. And again, with the Educational Access Grant, active awards, 3,594 students for a total of $9.6 million, with 229 students that have been canceled or awards that have been canceled or declined for a total of $325,200. You can move forward to the next slide. So in a previous commission meeting, it was asked about the trends and the cancellations. You could see as we've increased or expanded the eligibility for the Guaranteed Access Grant, you do see a trend, increased cancellation of students. The aspect of looking at the Guaranteed Access Grant is offered to all eligible Maryland residents that complete a FAFSA. So these students do not specifically complete any application saying that they specifically want a state grant or that they will be attending a college within the state. In many cases, you have students that either are attending a institution out of state, so they are canceling, or those students are choosing not to attend at all. We can move forward to the next slide. So the baseline, pre FY23, FY24 cancellations in about 30 to 34% range. Post HB 923, the first year FY25, we see a large surge of a plus 223%, and a spike in cancellation rate to 62.6%. Second year, we see a little bit of scale back, so not as many students are being canceled. So it's more moderate, but it's still above the pre-expansion of House Bill 923.
And Mr. Dorsett, just to put a little color on that, for those who may not remember House Bill 923, that was the bill that expanded eligibility and got rid of the GPA requirement, as well as the requirement that you had to be attending right after the fall, right after you graduated from high school, correct?
Correct. So you have it got rid of the GPA requirement. It expanded to give individuals up to 6 years after graduating from high school to apply or to be eligible for the grant, as well as up to the age prior to 26. So when you're looking at that, you're looking at the aspect of individuals that previously were denied due to GPA now became eligible. Individuals that chose not to go to school until a later point in time now become eligible. Individuals that left the state of Maryland and came back become eligible. And even individuals that left the state of Maryland and are at a institution out of state still do become eligible, which that leads to cancellations and declines because those individuals, although they are eligible, they are already at a out of state institution.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We can move on to the next slide. So wait list. As of October 17th, you will see the wait list. The wait list consists of individuals that are in a ready to award status as well as a not ready to award status. So with our current system, as an application comes in, the system identifies if an individual qualifies for the award. Even if an individual qualifies for the award, there may be certain documents that are requested for the individual, especially if they are selected for verification. With our current system, which is something we will be moving away from as we go into our new system, once a student submits all their documents, they go into a qualified status. So they are on the wait list as a qualified status, but they are not ready to be awarded because either there needs to be review or, something with their documentation needs to be finalized. So you will have individuals, again, that are on a ready to be awarded status on the wait list, and students that are not ready to be award status. And that's key right there, because when we look at students on the wait list, you may have students that never move to a ready to be award status because they don't submit their documents or something like that. So with those numbers, we see right now there are 6,470 students on the wait list for a total of $22.8 million. With looking at what we've already awarded, students in a awarded accepted status and students in a awarded not accepted status, plus the 22.8 million for students that are on the wait list, there is about 2.2 million remains available on the Howard P. Rowland. So that's saying that if every student currently awarded accepted their awards, and we were able to award all these students that are on the wait list, move to a ready award status for the 22.8 million, we still would have 2.2 million in funds remaining to award in the Howard P. Rowland's EEA program. Or we would only have 2.2 million. And you can move on to the next. Just to update on two key programs, because they have been stood out this year. Teaching fellows, I'll kind of go over that one first. If you recall, during the 2025 legislative session, the Teaching Fellows program was reduced from 18 million to 14 million, as well as for 2026, they reduced the allocation from 18 million to 14 million. With that being said, we have issued about 572 awards, 146 initial students, 426 renewal students, total of 13.99 million, which puts us at that 14 million. There are still 85 students on the wait list for about 2 million in a ready to be award status, and there are 197 students on the wait list for 4.9 million in a not ready to be award status. Total waitlist funding is 6.9 million that we would need to award all the students on the wait list. We are continuing to award as well as with the Guaranteed Access Program. We continue to award students as long as we have not had all students accepted the awards. So the application is still open for teaching fellows as well as cybersecurity, which I'll go over next. But we continue to keep that application open as well as we continue to award students on the wait list, as we have about $1 million in the teaching fellows of students that have been awarded that have not accepted their awards. We still have the process, which is actually in our regulations, of waiting 6 weeks before the award is canceled. So notifying those individuals, sending them about 3 to 4 different notifications that they've been awarded and how to accept their award. Once they do not accept their award after that time frame, their award is canceled, and then we go into the system to award any additional students based off funding that we have available. Once we do get to the point where close as possible, the number of students that have accepted their awards is 14 million, where we find that we can't award any additional students, we will close that application as well as notify students that are on the wait list at this time that there are no additional funds remaining. Currently, students on the wait list, we have notified that they are on the wait list. We have told them that the funding is not guaranteed and suggested that they also look for other funding just in case funding is not available to them. Same thing with cybersecurity. We have awarded 61 awards. Cybersecurity has a budget of $1 million. 23 initial students have been awarded, 38 renewal students have been awarded. Total funding issued has been $589. There are still 52 students in a ready to be awarded status for $2 million. There are 38 students in a not ready to be awarded status for $1.4 million. Total funding needed would be $3.46 million. In our over budget request, we did request additional funds for both of these 2 programs and waiting to see if we are approved for those additional funds. So additional updates, what you'll hear about: submitted legislative request to postpone decentralization of the Guaranteed Access Grant until 2029-2030 award year. The FAFSA has opened as of October 1st. The MHAC 1 app will open November 1st. We pushed back from opening on October 1st just because there were changes in the federal government when it came to how they structured the FAFSA and different questions. So we need to make sure with the vendor that we have that information updated to make sure that we are awarding students correctly, as well as the amount of the award students are receiving correctly. But it is scheduled to open on November 1st. As well as we are working on our Maryland Student Information System. We've had already sessions with the institutions of higher ed, FAO user group, as well as we've met with the legislative user group. That's the new vendor for them to get a idea as well as suggestions of what the different institutions as well as legislators are looking for with this new system, especially with the portals that they have access to within the new system. You can move on. And that is it. If there are any questions, please feel free. I'll open it up now. If not, I thank you for giving me your time.
Thank you, Mr. Dorsett, and thank you to your whole team in the Office of Student Financial Assistance. You do outstanding work for the students of our state, and we are very grateful as a commission. Any questions from commissioners?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have one question. Mr. Dorsett, thanks for the presentation. You indicated that you've asked for additional funds for both of those 2 programs that you just described. I was just curious about that. Since the budget for that year is already passed and done, from what source would the additional funding come?
So in our over budget request, we do have the ability for certain programs to transfer funds from our need-based student financial assistance fund to over those programs. So that's usually what we will ask for, waiting for the Department of Budget Management to approve or not approve that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Dorsett. As always, amazing report and incredible work that means so much for students and families in Maryland. So thank you. Quick question that might help me understand putting this in context. and perhaps you have this in the material and I missed it, but do you track longitudinal data over a period of years about the awards, the acceptances, those who decline it, to sort of put in context of where we are in our journey today over time? Because the data is so helpful, but without a bigger lens to see where we're headed from a linearity or trajectory, it may be a little bit hard to understand that importance of this impact.
Sure, we do track that, and we look at the difference between every year, kind of a overall picture of the number of students or total number of students that have accepted versus the individuals that have declined, or the total amount awarded over the year. We do see that compare from last year, and I'll just give you a last year to this year to make it kind of quick for you, but definitely can give you more information. But compared, we see that there is a decrease in the number of awards overall that have been accepted compared from last year to this year, right? So we are seeing that we've been able to award more students by reducing that total maximum award amount down to 18,000. But as we award more students, we see that there is a increase in the declines of students. So that's really kind of the hard part for us. The aspect of it is you want to make sure that you are offering the award to all eligible students. That's where the funding comes in place, because do you have enough to offer? You never know what the acceptance and decline rate is going to be after a certain amount of time. We had the trend prior to the expansion of the program of our acceptance and decline rate. But then, as you see, as the expansion of the program came in, our acceptance and decline rate is changing. So that longitudinal data that we had in the past no longer really is as impactful as it will be in the future, because with the new changes, we need to create new longitudinal data to see that acceptance rate, the total amount of students awarded, as well as that decline rate.
I think that's incredibly helpful. And I think those sorts of insights with changes of eligibility and acceptance rates over time is so important for us to understand the power and impact of all the awards that are out there. So just generally appreciate that longitudinal view over a period of years, and when policy changes come into effect, how it changes what you're doing and the trajectory for students. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Mr. Dorsett? All right, sir. I think you also have some proposed regulations for us to approve.
Yes.
If it's possible, could we finish with this item and then we can?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. I thought we were.
His regs are right after that.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just so you know, you often say Al is the hardest working man in higher education. He's not even here today. He's at a conference. Where are you, Al?
I'm at DC at the National Association for State Grant and Aid Programs. So NASGAP is our national association where we meet with all the different state agencies around the U.S. and we really go over what's taking place in federal changes, how it's affecting us, how it's impacting us, and kind of share key strategies that we all can utilize across to really manage our programs a lot better with these federal changes.
And he's making a presentation later today as well.
Yes. Thank you.
Right, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Sam Pandian, our Director of Budget Administration, to review the MHEC budget, and then we'll do our recommendation.
Good morning, Chair Martz, Secretary Roy, and commissioners. The Maryland Higher Education Commission has received a total appropriation of $844.7 million for its fiscal year 2026 operating budget. This represents a 6% increase, $47.9 million over the 2025 appropriation of $796.8 million, reflecting Maryland's continued commitment to investing in higher education during the period of economic stabilization. The administration budget grew to $12.7 million, up from $11.5 million the prior year, allowing MHEC to strengthen internal operations and administrative support. The table 4 shows the total budget by segments. The largest portion of the fiscal 2026 budget, 63%, continues to support Maryland community colleges and non-public institutions through grant funding mechanisms like a CADE funding formula and the Sillinger program. These funds remain vital for enhancing academic programming, upgrading infrastructure, and sustaining educational innovations. Scholarship program account for 26% of the total budget, a substantial increase from previous year, signaling a stronger emphasis on student financial report. These scholarship initiatives include Delegate and Senatorial Scholarship, Conroy and Crayer Memorial Scholarship, and Maryland Promise Scholarship. Teachers' retirement and optional retirement contributions represent 9% of the total budget, sustaining commitments to our educator workforce. The Loan Assistance Repayment Program maintains a steady 1% allocation, helping to ease the debt burden for graduates in high-need service areas. Finally, administrative operations account for 2% of the total budget, covering essential functions such as personnel, IT, and general oversight. MHEC remain continued to maximizing the impact of every dollar. In fiscal year 2026, we continue to seek operational efficiencies and uphold our missions of supporting accessible, affordable, and high-quality post-secondary education for all Marylanders. That concludes my presentation. I'm here to answer if you have any questions. Otherwise, I will hand over to Mr. Newman.
Jeff and Samuel, just thank you. One quick question. Two quick questions. One, can you just repeat for everyone listening, how many FTEs does MHEC have?
89.
89. And if you think about the massive to-do list of this, or I preach this consistently, how much is done with very, very little. So I say that for the public's benefit. Secondly, of the FTEs that we budgeted for, how many do we have on? Meaning, are there any kind of billets that we've not filled that we were budgeted for?
I believe we have about 6 that we haven't, that are vacant right now.
That is, and by the way, I say this for the public's benefit. I think when I first came on, that number was roughly 15, if I remember correctly, probably about 2 years ago. So hats off. And when I think about the secretary and I think about Chair Motz, we always stump and advocate for more resources, but it's always helpful to make sure that we spent what we get. And so that makes that case easier, so on and so forth. So thank you. And I throw it back to you, Jeff, and Chair.
Thank you. So I could just go to the recommendation, and you'll see that the first item is related to resources for MHEC, but it's recommended that the Maryland Higher Education adopt the following funding priorities to be used in targeting funding for higher education. And I apologize, there's a typo in fiscal year 2027. The first one is funding to support the Maryland Higher Education Commission general administration budget as it continues to implement new programs, add new staff, modify existing programs, and examine its operations to increase automation of application and management programs. And related to that, also as part of the agency, funding to support new and existing programs of student financial assistance and changes to existing programs brought forward by the Governor and General Assembly, as well as to support implementation of the new financial aid system. Third is continued support of formula-funded institutions and segments in line with appropriations provided to the public four-year colleges and universities in accordance with the calculation methodologies provided in statute to the extent possible. And again, to the extent possible, provide funding to each segment of higher education. That concludes my presentation, and the recommendation is up for your adoption.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the changes as recommended.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye or raise your hand, please.
Aye.
Any oppositions or abstentions? All right, the ayes have it. Assistant Attorney General Ward, was that done legally and appropriately? Excellent, thank you. I also want to note for the record that some time ago, just at the beginning of the meeting, we were joined by our 9th commissioner, Commissioner Polonio. So welcome to you, ma'am. And we have 9 of our commissioners here now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Newman, and
I'll hand it
to
back
your
to
whole
Al.
team. All right, are we now moving to the amendments? Is that right, to the regulations? Okay. I don't, if Mr. Dorsett, I know he's at a conference. Mr. Dorsett, are you available?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, great. The floor is
And
yours.
Alex, if you could share the C book for the amendments. Not
Yes.
let me know. Okay.
Should I scroll to the bottom?
No, you can leave it right there at the first page. So the as the Maryland Higher Education Commission is charged with submitting to the Governor and General Assembly a consolidated. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong one. I apologize. Alice, can you scroll up a little bit? Okay. So the memorandum highlights areas where the regulations governing the Teaching Fellows for Maryland Scholarship Program diverge from statutory provisions. As we reviewed, and MHEC is in the process of reviewing all regulations. So as the time goes forward, you will see more regulations come this way. Definitely, I want to commend our AG's department as well as our External Affairs Department for assisting in this. Could not have done this without them. And thank Dr. Rye for bringing together a great team. I see us very much moving forward with improving processes as well as our regulations and coming in streamline or consistent with a statute that is coming through. For the teaching fellows, biggest thing we're looking at is proposing amendments to update and clarify provisions within Title 13B 0822 of the Code of Maryland Regulations governing the Teaching Fellows of Maryland Scholarship. The revisions aim to clarify program definitions for enrollment, student residency, status of full-time employee, refine agency participation, and clarifying the role and authority of the office and the commission. Update eligibility requirements by eliminating the GPA requirement, standardized test scores, and essay requirement for various applicants. The GPA requirement was already removed by statute. However, we did see different obstacles as within regulations, especially with the essay requirement. Looking at obstacles as the aspect of, yes, the student does a 600-word essay, but we are required to read that essay. So as the individual is waiting, the individual is now waiting for us. If we receive 100 applications, that is 6,000 plus or 60,000 different words that an individual is reading, trying to catch up to make sure that the individual is identified as eligible. As well as add an eligibility requirement to possess a valid Social Security number or taxpayer identification number for initial eligibility. As we identified, there were no restrictions in there against individuals that were non-eligible citizens or eligible citizens or individuals that were came from a foreign country. Looking at the aspect, if the individual does not have those requirements that are added in there, how would that individual have access, or how could we confirm that that individual will have access to work to meet the requirements of the program? So adding those in there to fill in the gap, as well as refine or adjust the minimum service obligation for both undergraduate and graduate scholarship recipients to 2 years based off changes in legislation, and refine institutional responsibility by adding additional standards for award certification. So the push and rationale of aligning regulations with statutory provisions is essential to ensure that the Teaching Fellows for Maryland Scholarship Program is administered in a manner that is both legally sound and transparent to all. Inconsistencies between statutes and regulations can create confusion for students, institutions, and administrators, and may expose program to compliance risks. By bringing these regulations to conformity with law, MHEC can strengthen program integrity, provide clear guidance to stakeholders, and ensure equitable and consistent implementation of the scholarship program. A copy of the enacted bill is enclosed for your reference with the attached proposed amendments change for the regulations for the scholarship to align them with statutory changes made by legislation. So the proposed amendments have been approved for legality by MHEC's Assistant Attorney General as required by the Maryland Administrative Procedure Act and now enclosed for your review and approval. Upon your approval, proposed regulations and regulatory amendments are submitted to the Legislators' Joint Committee on Administrative, Executive, and Legislative Review, after which they are submitted to the Division of State Documents for publication in the Maryland Register, and after a public comment period, they may be brought back before the Commission for final adoption. Recommendation 1, approve for publication in the Maryland Register that includes proposed regulatory amendments to COMAR 13B 0822. And then recommendation 2, authorize the Assistant Attorney General to make any non-substantive edits necessary to confirm to the stylistic and formatting requirements of AELR and DSD.
Thank you, Mr. Dorset. You were finished, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Any questions for Mr. Dorset? And just to be very clear, the legislature made changes and you worked with your internal team and your Assistant Attorney General to make sure that the MHEC regulations comply with the changes in statute. And that's what these regulations are, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Do we have a motion with respect to Mr. Dorset's recommendations?
Madam
So
Chair, I
moved.
move that we approve the recommendations as put forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Burnham. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye. Aye.
Any oppositions or abstentions? All right, they're unanimously approved. Thank you, Mr. Dorset, and good luck with your presentation at the conference representing Maryland nationally.
Thank you. Thank you for your support and thank you for your time. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. Believe we're now going to be discussing the capital improvement plan. Mr. Newman, is it back to you, or are we going to go straight to finance policy analyst Schuster?
We can go right to Dan Schuster. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Schuster, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Mr. Secretary and members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Dan Schuster. I'm the Capital Finance Analyst here at MHEC, and I will be presenting today the action item related to your recommendations for the FY27 capital budget. Likely not much of a surprise for you all, since it's similar to our recommendations from last year and most of the previous years. But our suggestions for your recommendations will be essentially to stick with what is already been planned in the CIP, or Capital Improvement Plan. The CIP, as hopefully you recall, is essentially the 5-year state capital budget. When the state is putting together its capital budget, it's basically trying to fund projects on a cash flow needs basis. That is, we need to have money available when it comes time to pay the bills. And when, as you'll see in some of the examples that I'm providing, most of these projects are taking place over the course of several years. And so you need to make sure you can put all the pieces together so you have the capacity in the budget every year to continue everything that you've started. And that's what's done in the CIP document, which is updated every January when the governor releases his budget to the assembly. And so the current CIP, the one I'm going to be referencing today, is the CIP that was released last January, which at the time included the recommended funding for the for FY26, which ultimately became the capital budget for 26, as well as that document included the recommended or the planned funding, I should say, for projects, various projects from FY27 through FY30. And as I'll illustrate in some of the examples I'm going to be showing in a minute, you'll see that the capacity in any one year in the capital budget is mostly swallowed up by projects that are in the construction phase, that are currently under construction, because that's where the vast majority of the costs associated with these projects lie. And as these projects are going on, a lot of times the costs go up. There's delays, there's inflation, tariffs, things that cause prices to get driven up, and you need to make sure that again you're finishing what you start, and so finishing those projects is always going to be the priority. The next thing is there's going to be some projects every year that start the design phase, the less expensive phase. And those projects typically have been in the hopper for a few years before they move to start. And so what happens is when there's a newly proposed project, a new project that's not in the CIP at all, typically it gets inserted into one of the later years, year 4 or year 5, before then, as time goes by, moves forward and is ready to get started. So that's all just to remind you that, the CIP is a well-developed plan that takes a lot of thought. And in the next fiscal year, there's not really going to be too much leeway to deviate much from that plan. And that's why we're going to suggest the recommendations that we are today. But before we proceed with that voting, I do want to spend a little bit of time to talk about some of what we're paying for in that plan. And hopefully also these examples will give you an idea about some of the things that you think about that the budget people need to think about when they're putting this plan together for what makes sense for the state. So first of all, we'll talk about the Community College Construction Grant Program. Again, this is the vehicle through which the state provides its share of the funding for capital projects at our community colleges. Again, there's a local share requirement as well. The current CIP plans $80 million for this program in FY27, and there should be a sufficient amount of money to advance all 17 of the projects that have been requested by 12 of our community colleges this year. It's interesting to note, I think, that a lot of the projects that we're seeing proposed through this program now are dealing with instructional space related to the areas of technology and workforce trades needs at the community colleges. You can see a few of the examples listed there. Next, I want to talk about Baltimore City Community College, which is a state-run agency, and so therefore it does not participate in the grant program I just talked about. Its capital projects are 100% funded by the state of Maryland. The CIP includes planned funding for 2 very important projects to renovate and expand 2 very old buildings on campus. These are both very necessary projects, and some will say probably long overdue. One of them is the Learning Commons, or the library. This project is estimated to cost about $45 million. The design phase is underway right now with the construction plan to start in FY27. And then we have the nursing building, which is estimated to cost about $52 million, and the design for that should begin in FY27. So I'm going to be looking now at the funding plan for both of these projects. And as I do, I'm going to point out a couple of things that have to be considered as the CIP is being put together. So first we have the Learning Commons, okay? And as you can see, the design funding for that one began in FY23, but things got a little bit delayed and the design is still ongoing now. They're not going to be ready to start construction until FY27, which is where you see the bulk of the funding. And the construction phase is going to be the bulk of the funding. And the plan currently is to have that take place in FY27 and FY28. And moving to the nursing building, you can see that there was actually some funding authorized in 25 for that project, but it's not anticipated that that's actually going to be spent immediately. Because as I said, the design phase for this is not expected to start until 27. So it's going to last a couple of years, and hopefully construction going to start in 29 and go into 30. So if you go back to the last slide, you can see, again, all the bulk of the construction activity going on in 27, 28 for that one, and the bulk of the construction going on in 29 and 30 for this one. And that's not by accident, right? So even though these projects are both very important, and like I said, a lot of people think they're long overdue, even if we wanted to fund them right now, we also have to think about things like the disruption to students in their learning activities. If there was two very large construction projects going on a small campus like that at one time, right? It's going to be disruptive to their day-to-day. It's going to be hard for the staff to manage projects like that. So that's why these projects are planned to be sequenced, right? With the design for this one happening in 27 and 28, while the construction for this one is going on, right? And then hopefully by the time the construction is over for that one, they'll be ready to start construction on this one so they both can be completed as quickly as possible. So that's some of the other things besides, just what are the needs and what are the funding capacity. These are some of the other things that people have to think about when they're putting a CIP together. All right, so when we think about capital projects, a lot of times we think about big, fancy, new buildings, and certainly the CIP does have a lot of those. This one is one example. This is the Zupnik Hall, which is the new engineering building at College Park. It's a very exciting project. Excuse me. It's going to be building a brand new facility of about 164,000 square feet. It's going to allow the university to expand capacity in a couple of engineering departments, as well as bring in some research dollars to the institution. There's going to be collaboration spaces, hopefully solve some issues and problems with the industry, and hopefully bring a lot of economic growth to the state of Maryland. Again, very exciting project. It's going to cost over $240 million to put this building up. Important to note, the state is funding only about $185 million of that, with the rest coming through private philanthropy, primarily the Clark Foundation. The aim is to have this project completed in FY27. Here's a little picture of what it should look like, hopefully, when it's done. And as you can see, the funding for this project has been ongoing since FY22 when design started, but the bulk of the costs, again, I said it was $185 million for the state. You'll see in 25 there was 70 million. 26 there's it looks like almost 60 million. So about 130 million of that is just in these 2 years, and hopefully the last of it again will be in FY27. So not all of the projects though in the CIP are as exciting as that one, even if they are just as important. So here's an example of another type project at Morgan State. And this one is one where if it's done correctly, probably when all is said and done, 5 or 6 years from now, when it's all complete, the students attending Morgan at that time will probably have no idea this project ever took place. Right? This one is going to be replacing a electric substation and expanding the capacity of another one on campus. And it's an example of a project probably the college probably would not want to do if it didn't have to do it. But what happened is that we're going through the programming and design for some of the other projects. They realized until they did this project, there wasn't going to be enough capacity, electric capacity on campus to put some of the other buildings online, including the new science center that's under construction right now. So this project had to be moved up in the plan ahead of some of the other ones. Again, it's very expensive, $180 million, but completely necessary. This one's in design right now with the construction plan for the next several years. And there's a brief look at the funding plan for that one. And this project in Morgan is not unique to that institution. There's similar projects you'll find throughout the CIP in any one year. There's a few of them listed here that you can see. And again, these are probably projects that are not going to have as much of a direct impact on students, but you have to do these sometimes before you do some of the other projects that do have that impact, like this uplink hall or things like that, right? So that when you're putting a CIP together, you had to plan for all these things as well. Put everything in the right order when you're doing the project. So that segues back to our recommendation, which again is going to be essentially to stick with this well-developed plan for the upcoming year. And I will pause there if there's any questions before I go ahead and read these into the record for voting yes.
Commissioner Howe?
Well, I will now open my mouth and remove all doubt as to my stupidity about everything you just talked about. A quick question. Are all of these projects priced out on competitive bids?
Well, there is a competitive process for all of the state funding, yes. There's a lot of different ways, however, delivery methods for projects to take place, and some of them are design, bid, build, where you get a architect on board first. They put the documents together. They go out to bid for the contractor. Mm-hmm. You got design, build projects, or you got construction management at risk, where they basically get a guaranteed price from a contractor after they go through an RFP process to figure out the most qualified vendor, and then they guarantee a price to complete the project, and they go ahead and hire all the subs and so forth. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, but there is competition, at least to figure out with the most qualified firms.
And just to make a point, just to make give a clarity, MHAC does not get involved in that process. Each institution that goes through their own process, they do the RFP and they award the contracts.
That's correct.
Oh, thank you for that. And we're looking forward to projects that are going to be going in 27, 28. I think one of them is even up to 29. So if we vote now to approve this, whatever motion it is, does that lock them in place, or are they subject to modification in oncoming presentations in the next year?
So the budget, so the planned amounts are not the authorized amounts, right? So the CIP is put together so that the state knows it has enough capacity within the planned budget to finish all of these things. But it doesn't mean that when the next year comes that they're actually going to get that amount of money. Project could have been delayed, right? And they might not need the money that year. Costs could go up or down. Sometimes they go down. And so then, different amounts are approved. None of this is we're not a budget agency, right? And DBM, as they put the budget together every year, is going to do all the math and figure out, okay, how much do we have to give for everybody this year versus next year and so on, and plan for all of that. What we're recommending here is essentially to align what has been requested by the institutions with what is planned in the CIP to continue those projects in the most expeditious manner.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Agu?
Mr. Schuster, thank you so much for the presentation. Just one quick question, well, maybe two quick questions. One, can you just talk about in terms of, on average, can you talk about kind of cost overruns and delays? So historically, kind of how above budget are we? And not are we, but are projects like this between now and when they're fully done? And then secondly, who is responsible for kind of overseeing in terms of being on time and being on budget? It sounds that my understanding is that tell me, is that MHEC, is that the institution, is it another party within government? So can you just tell me, on average, how behind and how over budget are these projects? And we know that that's kind of part and parcel, but then secondly, who's in charge of kind of staying on top of that?
Well, I'll start with who's in charge. So all these projects are managed by the institutions. All right. So, they're the ones that are, as we just talked about, they're bidding out the contracts. They got to make sure that, they're managing the project with the vendors as they're going through. And so they're the ones that are ultimately holding the vendors' feet to the fire once, they get started. In terms of, delays and things like that, I can't give you like an average or anything. I don't have that information available. What I can say is that it really depends on each individual project is different. Some of them are a lot easier than others. Some of them, as you get into the design phase, there's a lot of things, whether it's, if you're putting up a building, you might get into soil conditions or things of that nature that you had no idea that they existed to delay a project. You could, if you're renovating a project, once you start tearing out walls, you might find some things under the walls you had no idea were there, and that could delay things. As they're going through permitting, sometimes the permitting process with those agencies that regulate the different kind of permits for, whether it be for wastewater management or things of that nature, like sometimes those can delay the project. It's not always, something that can be controlled, right? And throughout the budget process, what everybody that's looking at the budget is trying to do is make sure that at least the institutions are proceeding in the most expeditious manner that they can, with all of these things that are happening, try to hold their feet to the fire a little bit to get these projects done. Because as you said, like delays, when things delay in construction, that just means inflation. That just means the costs go up a lot. And, we're talking, 2% of a $240 million project is a lot of money, right? So, inflation, when things get delayed, the inflation factor is not small. And so it is important to hold everybody's feet to the fire as we're doing this. And that is certainly all part of the questions that are asked in the budget process every year when colleges request the money.
One last question, because that's really helpful. When cost overruns or delays, and they become the same thing because they end up costing us more money at the time, who bears the cost of that? For example, could an institution come back through the CIP process and try and get that covered by the state? Are they obligated to take care of it? So who covers those overruns when they happen?
Well, it depends on the situation. There are times as they go through it where the institutions pick up the difference with institutional funds. There are times when they certainly have to ask for, and if it's determined that it's justified, receive additional state funds. With the community college projects, there are certainly times when the locals have picked up a higher share of the cost, depending on the circumstances. And certainly the colleges do as well, sometimes pick up a share of the cost. So it depends again on the situation. Every project is unique. Everything is different. It's a little column A, a little column B for all of this. And also a big part of it too is value engineering, right? Because when costs go up, a lot of the times, rather than increasing the budget, you're just tweaking the scope a little bit to get maybe not quite some of the things you really wanted to get with the budget that you had. And so you'd wind up with a little bit less than what you intended. But hopefully the project is still meeting the main needs that it's intended for. So there's a lot that goes into it every year when costs go up. Sometimes it does actually increase the budget. Sometimes it doesn't. And it just changes the scope of the work of the project.
Thank you so much. And so it sounds like there is a deliberative process. It's not necessarily a fait accompli that the state or this process will pick it up. It sounds like there's a process, which I believe, but it's great to hear from you. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Back to you, or to Dan, back to you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I guess the next thing I have to do for the record is read these recommendations into the record for your action. So I'll start with that. So the recommendation is recommended that the Maryland Higher Education Commission make the following recommendations for the fiscal year 27 capital budget. The approval of the $80 million planned in the CIP for the Community College Construction Grant Program. The approval of the Community College Facilities Renewal Grant Funding request of $4 million, consistent with statutory formula. The approval of the FY27 funding for projects planned in the CIP for Baltimore City Community College, the University System of Maryland, Morgan State University, and St. Mary's College of Maryland, and the approval of the $8 million planned in the CIP for the MICUA FY27 capital budget.
Thank you, Mr. Schuster. Are there any questions before we go to a motion? All right, is there a motion with respect to Mr. Schuster's recommendations?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? All right, the recommendation is unanimously approved. Thank you, Mr. Schuster.
Thank you.
We're now moving to agenda item 3C on the agenda, which are biannual reports from the Department of Academic Affairs. So I will turn the floor over to Assistant Secretary for Academic Affairs, Emily Dow.
Great, thank you. Good morning. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Mr. Schuster, can I ask you to stop sharing your screen, please, so that I can share mine? Thank you, sir. Okay. Okay, good morning, commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to provide some updates on recent approvals that have been delegated to the secretary. What I'm about to walk you through are the 4 reports that you find in your commission book. These are reports of this past 6 months, generally speaking, one exception, but the January to June 2025 timeframe. And it's for 4 different teams. So I'm going to go through a slideshow that provides details on all 4 reports and some additional information. These slides are slightly different. I added in a couple of additional slides since the book was published, and I'll make sure that the book has this updated slide deck for public consumption. So if you're following along in the book, note that there are a couple of slides that are new. Some background. Again, these reports are a summary of approval and actions required by state law. Everything in here is something that we have to do either by statute or by regulations. And these are actions that the commission has delegated to the secretary for a variety of approvals and responses to entities seeking to operate in Maryland, entities already operating in Maryland. So this is all well within the legal authority of the agency and actions that are delegated specifically to the secretary. Because these are actions delegated to the secretary, it's our responsibility to let you all as commissioners know what those actions are. And again, provides institutional insight into institutional operations and academic program approval. We have 4 teams that provide these reports. This is our institutional review team, our private career school team, our academic program review team, and our Veterans Affairs team. Before I go any further into these reports, I do want to recognize our new Director of Academic Affairs, Dr. Natasha Cornell. She is on the call. She started at the agency at the beginning of August and has hit the ground running. She oversees these 4 teams. And the day-to-day operations. When we were doing interviews, she said, "What's the priority here?" And I said, "The priority is to keep the trains running." And so that is exactly what we are doing. And she's been a wonderful addition to the team so far. Dr. Cornell, do you want to say anything real quick?
Sure. Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Dow.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Secretary Rai, and the remaining members of the commission. It's a pleasure officially meeting everyone, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Cornell. And commissioners, you will likely hear Dr. Cornell present these reports in the next cycle. But for now, since she wasn't here during this time frame, I will take the lead for reporting. Okay, let's dive right in. Degree granting institutions. Once again, this is the January 1st to June 30th timeframe. The team reviewed a number of applications for in-state degree granting institutions. So these are applications from entities seeking to be new degree granting institutions in Maryland. The team entertained 4 applications, 1 at the stage 1 process and 3 at the stage 2 process. The team is also addressing 2 institutional closures that are in process. That's Reed Temple Bible College and the Collegium. We have several out-of-state institutions that have sought to operate in Maryland. 1 initial application and 3 are in process. We have had a couple of site closures in which out-of-state institutions are no longer operating here in Maryland. And then finally, degree granting institutions with religious exemptions. We have 2 that are in the process and 4 that are renewed. These are renewals that happen every 2 years. Let me walk you over to distance education. This is an often highlight of this report, talking about in-state and out-state migration for students either studying at our Maryland institutions online or our Maryland students studying at out-of-state institutions online. We have about 42,000 Maryland residents in over 1,200 approved online programs at out-of-state institutions through our reciprocity agreement. At the same time, 40 of our Maryland institutions participate in that reciprocity agreement. And about 40,000 students, out-of-state students, are enrolled in an online program at Sarah. So we have a difference there of about 2,000 students. 2,000 more students, Maryland residents, are studying online at an out-of-state institution than necessarily studying at a Maryland institution. Additionally, we have a handful of non-participating institutions that do not participate in the reciprocity agreement. We have 56 out-of-state institutions that we consider registered to enroll Maryland students. So if an institution does not participate in that reciprocity agreement, they still have to come to our agency, and we make sure that they have appropriate accreditation, that they are approved by their home state, that they have financial viability to serve Maryland students. So we do an initial check to make sure that the institution is well situated to be able to offer distance education. So we call that online registration, and we have 56 of those entities that participate in that process. So that's the summary of our degree granting institutions and our institutional review team. Let me go over to our private career school team. Private career schools, I've given you the definition here. What I consider them to be the non-degree granting post-secondary institutions. So these entities may or may not have accreditation recognized by the U.S. Department of Education, but many of them are working with a licensing board and providing high quality, in-demand post-secondary education. To become a private career school, we have them fill out what we call a training provider questionnaire, which we determine whether or not that entity does meet the threshold of a private career school. What you'll see in parentheses is the number in the previous 6 months. Last time we presented on this information, some of the commissioners asked for historical data to compare contrast. So 133 training provider questionnaires in the past 6 months and 93 in the previous 6 months in 2024. So a significant increase in the number of TPQs that the staff are processing. A determination of becoming a private career school then signals to the entity that they need to participate in a training session. They are expected to submit a full application to become a private career school, which includes a review of things like course catalogs, enrollment agreements, again, financial capacity, and administrative oversight. In light of that, we've had 5 new private career schools be approved to operate in Maryland, again, during this January 1st to June 30th timeframe. The previous 6 months, it was 3 new private career schools. 2 new programs were approved at an existing private career school, and 2 modifications at an existing private career schools, and they were change of locations. Additionally, just so that you know what the staff workload is currently, right now, as of today, there are 26 applications currently under review. As you can see, last time we reported, it was 21. So that has increased, likely because of our determinations through the training provider questionnaire. So this is quite a bit of workload for the team. You'll see here anything with an asterisk are programs or new private career schools that require a coordination with the licensing boards. We have made a concerted effort in the past 2 to 3 years to make sure that the curriculum that the school is using leads to licensure. So we are working very closely with licensing boards. So we are not doing this approval in isolation. Just for comparison's sakes, a different visual here. So that you can see the previous 6 months versus the current 6 months, and the difference in all those different actions and what the team is reviewing and approving. Let me pause because the next section is on academic programs, and let me just see if there are any questions on our degree granting institutions and our private career schools.
Dr. Dowk, one quick
Yes.
question. For private career schools, and I feel like I ask a variant of this question every year when I see this report. Basically, generally, when folks apply, we are looking at, have you done all the compliance things? Are you a sound institution, financially and otherwise? Is there any assessment or crosswalk with kind of the needs as we see in the workforce needs assessment? Meaning, do we look at the discipline of degree being offered and seeing if it meets our workforce needs? And if not, is that allowable under current reg or statute?
Great question. Yes and no. I would say 99% of the TPQs that we receive are for high demand, in demand occupations and industries. It's rare for us to see a proposal for something that is a little obscure or out of the ordinary. Because many of these private career schools are businesses, and so they are interested in providing post-secondary education that is needed by industry in some way, shape, or form. So as part of the TPQ, yes and no. As part of the full application, a private career school does have to demonstrate workforce need. So they have to have evidence from business partners that there is a need for their graduates. So that is separate and apart from the workforce needs analysis. That is incumbent on the entity applying to be a private career school to demonstrate that there are entities that will hire their graduates once they complete the program. Do we have the authority to say no to a private career school that doesn't have a demonstrated need? That's a good question. I'd have to come back to you on that because I don't know if that is an explicit reason why we could say no to an entity. But considering it is part of the application process, it is very much a consideration. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, I would love to know if, and this has to be here, just if that is allowable. As I think about my fellow commissioners, it may be worth us thinking about if that should be a particular kind of step in the analysis. Not to be done here, but just that'll be helpful analysis going forward.
Absolutely. In a forthcoming commission meeting, you'll likely hear more about the private career school approval process and what that application process looks like. We'll be bringing some issues to you on that front. So know that will be something that will be discussed in either the November or December commission meeting as well.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on private career schools and degree granting institutions? Okay, if not, we'll move into academic program review at our degree granting institution. So in contrast, our private career school team does both institutional approval and academic program approval. Whereas for our degree granting institutions, we have a team dealing with just institutional level topics and issues, and then a whole different team dealing with academic program review because it's such a heavy topic. A list here of all the different new academic programs. Again, the initial number is our current number, and the number in parentheses is the number from the previous 6 months. A few increases that are worth noting. Additionally, the number of proposals with an objection, some substantial modification indicators, and proposals that don't meet the threshold of a non-substantial modification. For visualization, here you go. I thought this might be helpful for the compare contrast between this year and last year. Or this term, this 6 months and the previous 6 months. You'll see quite an increase in the number of bachelor proposal that we received this past 6 months, 17 new bachelor's degrees. And then you'll also see an increase in the number of areas of concentration. We see that as a good sign that institutions are using existing programs and doing further specializations with areas of concentrations. Additionally, you'll see an increase in the non-substantial modifications. Some of that is attributed to, you might remember about a year ago or so, we changed the definition of what is a substantial modification, and we increased the threshold to be a substantial modification. So many proposals that would have met the definition of a substantial modification now meets the definition of a non-substantial modification. So that kind of explains that significant increase. Some additional statistics. So now we're looking at a time frame over the past 2 years. Secretary Rye asked that we pull some of these data points for your situational awareness. So this is the last 2 years. The team has reviewed or has received over 1,000 proposals. And these are proposals not just for new programs and substantial modifications, but these are also things like title changes, location changes, changes to various coding numbers that we use for categorization. So over 1,000 proposals received in a 2-year time frame. 996 of those have been approved. 61 of them have been withdrawn. And only 4 of those proposals were denied. And those were for new programs that the secretary reviewed. So really, shout out to the institutions for their continued work to making sure that we have, again, high quality contemporary academic programs. And a huge shout out to the team in processing these requests well within the 60-day timeframe so that we are responsive to the institutions. A further breakout of this data might be helpful to just see where some of these programs, program development is happening. For the community colleges, we have over 500 proposals. From our public 4 years, about 300, a little over 300, and our private institutions, a little over 200. Again, you can see the approval withdrawn and denied. Just to break this out even further, for our public 4-year institutions and the different segments there, Morgan had 18 proposals. University System of Maryland, which houses a number of all the remainder, with the exception of Morgan and St. Mary's, the remainder of our public 4-year institutions had about 311. And finally, our private institutions, MICUA as a whole, 172 proposals. And if we pull out just Hopkins, which is consistently updating their academic portfolio, you can see they are a big chunk of different proposals coming through. And so here's just your summary chart here of all of those different breakouts. Finally, breakout of new programs in this 2-year time frame by topic, by study of area. So 15 new programs in artificial intelligence in some way, shape, or form. 9 programs in computer science. 28 nursing-related programs. 27 teaching related programs, 8 STEM related programs, and finally 71 programs related to one of Maryland's lighthouse industries, whether that's life sciences, IT, computer science, cyber, quantum, or aerospace. So really exciting work that is happening and amazing opportunities for our students here in Maryland for post-secondary education. Before I move on to Veterans Affairs questions, I gave you a lot of data on academic program proposals. Questions on any of this?
Dr. Dow, you have a lot going on, and I just commend you and the staff for the tremendous work you're doing. Just curious, in that last slide, you showed Maryland Lighthouse Industries, and I'm not familiar with that term. Where does it come from? What does it mean?
Sure. So I'll take a try at answering your question, but I might turn it over to Secretary Rye to fill in the blanks. Lighthouse industries or lighthouse sectors have been identified both by the governor's office, by the governor himself, as well as Department of Labor and Department of Commerce as priority industries or sectors for the state of Maryland. So an initiative to bring industry partners in these fields or to expand existing industry partners in these fields for further economic development. Secretary Rye, did I get that? Anything you'd like to add?
You did very, very well. As you know, Commissioner Burnham, our governor is very competitive. We want the state to be economically competitive. As you know, in the past 10 years, other states have chosen areas and they have decided to invest and focus in certain areas. Like if you think of Massachusetts, last 10 years, they decided to focus on life sciences. North Carolina focused on these electric batteries and those things. So in Moore Miller administration, focus was what are the areas where we have a strength and we need to focus. So these 4 were determined by a lot of consultation, a lot of data. So now, in higher education, you will hear more from us what we are doing from higher education point of view to advance these industries, whether creating workforce, homegrown talent, developing IPs, helping retain businesses, or helping attract businesses. Since I have the floor, I will also say that I'm tremendously thankful to Dr. Dow's team. More than 1,000 proposals, all processed within 60 days limits. As you know, only 4 were unfortunately not approved. But more importantly, I'm very, very thankful to institutions of higher education. 1,000 new proposals. And if you look at the areas that are listed here, artificial intelligence, computer science, nursing, teaching, STEM, these are service economy, high demand areas, but also emerging areas of our economy. These lighthouse sectors were declared just a year ago or less than a year ago. Imagine institutions of higher education are so much ahead of the curve. So if businesses in Maryland or outside Maryland are watching this presentation, make sure you come here, you grow here, you retain businesses here. Here you will get homegrown, high quality workforce.
Thanks, Secretary Rye. I love the idea of businesses from out of state tuning into an MPEC meeting. Aspirational, perhaps, but I like it. Commissioner Thompson.
Yes, thank you so much. Dr. Dow, I was very, very happy to see all of the new areas. And as was already stated, congratulations to the staff for getting all that work done. Is there an opportunity or will there be for your office to really highlight these new proposed areas? What are we doing to get that word out? And, as things are developed toward completion of these new programs, it's very exciting, and it is cutting edge.
I appreciate that comment. It's something that we think about internally regularly. We certainly know that the institutions take it upon themselves to advertise accordingly for the development of these new programs. Excuse me for a minute. But there is, to your point, an opportunity for MHEC to collaborate with their communications department around press releases, and an opportunity to expand that voice when they say, hey, we have a new program in computer science. Excuse me for a minute. I am so sorry. I'm getting over a cold.
Commissioner Thompson, your suggestion is a very good one. I think that it's so important for us at the agency level also to try to do some publicity on this wonderful work that our institutions are doing. We'll
Yes.
certainly look into that. And academic program approval process is not the prettiest thing, but the outcomes that we have in the state of Maryland, especially from economic competitiveness point of view, and addressing the high demand areas, teaching, nursing, and others. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for our communication teams to see how we can take advantage and highlight this great work of our institutions on behalf of the state. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Dr. Dow, I appreciated the summary slides. I know you said you added a couple slides. I think this slide that's up is one of them, and also the summary by segment of all of the approvals. If you could make sure that everyone on the commission gets those, just, you don't have to resend the whole deck, but just the new slides. And I think in general, it's very helpful, following up on Commissioner Williams' line of questioning earlier. The raw data for 1 year is really helpful. Equally helpful is summary data and comparative data to prior years, because we're not in the weeds like you all are every day. So we don't know sort of what the trends are or how to compare it to an earlier year. So this is really helpful, and summaries like this are also really helpful. So thank you for that. Any other questions on this before we move to? Are we now up to the regulations, Dr. Dow?
Not yet. We have one more team.
Okay. Sorry.
Important work, not a problem. Want to give them an opportunity to shine as well. We have our team for Veterans Affairs. Their formal title is the State Approving Agency, which is a little confusing because it's the State Approving Agency for the use of veterans benefits at our institutions of higher education. So this team dabbles more in federal compliance than necessarily state compliance, but they do important work in making sure that our veterans are able to access post-secondary education as part of their veterans benefits. So a summary of their actions, again, these actions are motivated through federal law and federal regulations. They have a slightly different time frame. They work on the federal quarters than necessarily. So we're reporting now October 1st, 2024 through March 31st, 2025. I'm so sorry for my coughing. I will get a cough drop in a minute. They have reacted to nearly 1,700 program-related actions through catalog submissions and program review processes. They've done 12 supervisory visits during this time frame. Again, in comparison to the previous 6 months, that seems consistent. 3 institutions of higher learning and 9 non-college degree schools. This team also deals with post-secondary entities that MHEC doesn't really have oversight over, but does allow veterans to be able to take advantage of things like housing benefits. So for example, if an individual is going through a police academy training, we do not have oversight over police academy training because that is often considered a training of employees. But because that is training that a veteran is receiving, they may be eligible for veteran housing benefits while they are going through that training. And so the veterans team reviews the compliance, the necessary compliance with federal law to make sure that the veterans are able to access those benefits. 23 new facility approvals. This is, again, examples of some opportunity that the veterans team has ability to see additional post-secondary education opportunities, on-the-job training facilities, apprenticeship facilities, and even high schools. 273 actions related to technical assistance and liaison activities. These are those opportunities to coordinate with the appropriate post-secondary entities and making sure that there's compliance and technical support. So that's a summary of our Veterans Affairs team. Questions on that? Okay. If not,
can we
Chair
just mention, Dr. Dow, that this team is funded by the federal government?
I did not mention that, but you just did. This team operates under a contract with the federal government, again, to implement requirements and appropriate approvals and oversight for the purposes of veterans benefits, education benefits. Okay. Chair Motz, with your permission, I will dive into the next bit of our discussion, which includes our regulations.
Yes, and before you do so, I just wanted to thank you and your whole team for the enormous amount of work that goes into the review of all of the, the applications for new programs or program modifications. And also wanted to welcome Dr. Cornell. I'm really glad to have you on the team, and I look forward to hearing from you at future meetings. So yes, with that, please do, please do move on to the regulations, Dr. Dow.
Great. Okay. Let me share my screen. Thank you, everyone. And again, I would like to share my appreciation for the staff and the teams. They worked diligently. Dr. Cornell has been observing the teams, and she shared with me the other day, she's like, they really like their jobs. And that just warms my heart that we have people on staff who are committed to this work, enjoy the work, and want to do good by students. So just a big shout out to the academic affairs team and their efforts. Okay, on to draft regulations for unreasonable duplication and unnecessary duplication. Okay. Great. Just edit my screen here real quick. So sorry, I just need to adjust a few things. Okay, some historical context. Why are we here? What are we talking about? Let me take you back a little ways. As many of you know, we had a coalition case, and the coalition case settled in 2021. It resolved the finding of de jure program duplication harmful to Maryland's 4 HBCUs. Those 4 HBCUs are Bowie, Coppin, Morgan, and UMES. So you might ask, what is de jure? So just to level set, let me clarify some of this terminology. The term literally means by law or sanctioned by the state. The court found that the duplication wasn't accidental, but the result of policies and practices with roots in the era of legally sanctioned segregation. So you might ask, okay, so what does that mean for today? The state allowed the unnecessary duplication of academic programs at predominantly white institutions. This state-sanctioned duplication significantly hindered the ability of Maryland's 4 public HBCUs to develop their own academic programs and attract a diverse student body. By allowing the duplication, the state perpetuated the racial identifiability of the HBCUs. Students would choose potentially one university over the other when there was a duplicative program. And this maintained the segregatory nature of the higher education system in Maryland. So what's the legal finding? The U.S. District Court found that the failure to eliminate a traceable de jure policy of unnecessary duplication violated federal law and the state's constitutional obligations to eliminate the remnants of segregation. So we did have a historic financial remedy. In 2021, the legislature approved a mandated $577 million allocation to Maryland's 4 HBCUs over a 10-year period starting in fiscal year 23. There were several post-settlement recommendations, which included an NCHEMS report and a subsequent legislative work group, which made recommendations to revise the academic program review process. These policy reforms became apparent through House Bill 1244, which restructures MHEC's academic program review process based on recommendations from the NCHEM study and the legislative work group. This includes mandatory analytic tools like the workforce needs analysis and a harm analysis report for HBCUs, and works to ensure program alignment with state economic demands. Finally, and what we are going to be talking about today, it created a new regulatory framework requiring MHEC to establish new, clear standards for unnecessary duplication and unreasonable duplication and online program approval. So prior to the case, Maryland operated in de jure segregation in a de jure segregatory system. The court found that the state failed to eliminate a traceable de jure era policy of unnecessary program duplication, which continued to have segregatory effects. The $577 million financial settlement is the court-approved remedy for this finding. However, through the legislative mandates established through House Bill 1244, including new standards and regulatory drafting, MHEC must ensure that it dismantles and does not inadvertently recreate or mirror the specific vestiges of program duplication that the court found to be contrary to the state's constitutional obligations. So this is a little bit of the historical context and why this is so important that we address the standards for unreasonable duplication and unnecessary duplication, and a caution to make sure that we do not inadvertently recreate those specific vestiges of program duplication that may be in violation of our constitutional obligations. Questions on this historical context before I dive into where we are with this and an opportunity for open discussion?
No question, but a great summary. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Burnham.
Thank you, Dr. Dow, and I agree. Before we dive in, I just wanted to ask our Assistant Attorney General, Ms. Ward, if she had anything she wanted to add.
I do not. I went over this with Dr. Dow and I feel comfortable.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Dr. Dow, back to you.
Thank you. Okay, so here we are. We're now at the point of implementing House Bill 1244. This has been now over a year in the making. We've hit a number of milestones in implementing House Bill 1244, including the revision to substantial modification, the establishment of the Program Review Process Advisory Council, the establishment of the letter of intent process. So we've done a lot of work already, and we're at the point now to start developing formal regulations and standards around unnecessary duplication and unreasonable duplication. As you might remember or might know, right now in statute, there are 4 allowable objections. So what happens is we get a proposal for a new program or a substantial modification. We review it to make sure that it meets, that it has all the right sections. So we do a completeness check. And as soon as we determine that the proposal is complete, we put it out for circulation for public comment and public objection. Another institution can object on one of these 4 criteria. It's the proposed program is inconsistent with the institution's mission, it does not meet a state or regional need, or it is unreasonably duplicative, or it is unnecessary duplicative. 3 and 4 is what we are focusing on today, is the standards for unreasonable duplication and unnecessary duplication. And House Bill 1244 requires MHEC to adopt regulations on program objections. Just to note, there were certain timeframes for other elements in the in House Bill 1244. There is no deadline for this, but the legislature is very interested to hear our progress on this, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get questions during the next legislative session. So we're ready to move on this and ready to kind of pick it up and have these discussions. The regulations must specify the criteria and the factors used in the review. Okay, so what that means is, what does it mean to have what does it mean to be unreasonably duplicative? What does it mean to be unnecessarily duplicative? And so we have some examples and we have an outline for you all to respond to. The purpose of these regulations are to provide transparent, consistent standards for program review. The statute does not provide the standards. That is on the agency and the commission to develop the explicit standards. So that is what we are trying to do today. And they should be transparent enough that anybody could pick up the regulations and be able to run this analysis and be able to use the same standards to determine whether or not something is unreasonably or unnecessarily duplicative. We are expected, per the statute, to align the duplication analysis with workforce priorities. So looping back to the workforce needs analysis, we do need to align with and prioritize collaboration between institutions. And of course, we need to maintain, as I said in my opening remarks, our equal educational opportunity obligations under state and federal law. So the legislature, through House Bill 1244, separated unreasonable and unnecessary duplication. Unreasonable duplication that would cause harm to the state or student. And so in many ways, we are considering this a state standard. And unnecessary duplication that is in violation of the state's equal education opportunity obligations. This is the unnecessary duplication reflects a bit more the federal requirements, and particularly what is outlined in the Fordyce case around the elimination of program duplication in higher education. So we're going to start with unreasonable duplication. Unreasonable duplication, we're starting there. So just know that unreasonable and unnecessary, 2 different set of standards, 2 different analyses. Unreasonable duplication focuses on duplication that causes harm to the state or students. There are a few priorities, again, from statute. One is that we can think about meeting state and regional workforce needs as we think about what is unreasonable or what is not unreasonable. We do need to preserve existing programs to meet those needs. So just because there is a need for a particular field or occupation does not mean that we need to proliferate programs. We do need to continue to resource existing programs and to some extent allow institutions to expand those programs as needed. And finally, once again, back to this institutional collaboration. So as we think about meeting state and regional workforce needs, is another program really the best way to move forward, or is there an opportunity for institutions to collaborate to meet that need? Unreasonable duplication. So some general rules that we have outlined in the draft regulations this only applies to programs at the same level. So we have had concerns about a master's degree versus a doctoral degree. This is a master's to master's, doctoral to doctoral, only applies to programs at the same level. It is not unreasonable if it addresses the documented workforce shortage. And so we would look to our workforce needs analysis to say, is there a documented workforce shortage or in-demand occupation? And it's not unreasonable if it's in basic or common program or core disciplines. All doctoral programs are reviewed for duplication, and undergraduate programs are not unreasonably duplicative. So here's the analysis. So those are the general rules. That's the purpose of this section and the priorities. So how do we do analysis? Commissioner Warmack, do you want me to pause and take your question?
Dr. Dow, thank you so much.
I just want to go back to one thing. I want to make sure I understand the basic or common program in core disciplines. Just to help me define that a little bit better.
Sure. So there are some, oh, you're gonna put me on the spot. To think through a common core that is not at the undergraduate level. There may be situations at the graduate level that there are common programs that all institutions need to have.
Okay.
In which case, yeah, in which case we would say those common programs, every institution should have it.
So at the graduate level or just common core?
Yeah, I'm not thinking of a good example because at this point, undergraduate programs are not considered unreasonably duplicative.
Okay. Yes,
Yeah.
right. They wouldn't be. Okay.
Yeah.
So it would not be unreasonable if it's a basic or common core program in core disciplines. So computer science at the master's degree level would have some kind of common core basic competencies that are, within each program, right? If we had 4 of those programs across the state. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. Please.
No, that's okay. That's a good question. And I appreciate it. The slide is a little confusing. It merits, this is why this is a draft first time around. We will work to clarify that because I can see how that's a bit confusing. So thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, let me reiterate, this is a draft. This is the first time we're putting this out for public consumption. And I'll come back to process in a minute, but know that this is, so appreciate that, Commissioner Warmack, that feedback. Okay, so the analysis, how do we do the analysis? What are we actually looking at? So the first question that we need to ask ourselves is, does duplication even exist? So the first step we would review the basic indicators. So this is where we come back to what are the learning objectives and competencies of the proposed program and existing programs? What are the employment outcomes, licensure, certification, and accreditation considerations, and of course the title and SIP code. So these are kind of just basic indicators. Are the 2 programs similar? Another way to say it, is there potential for duplication for these two programs? If yes, we would go into step 2 and we would do a course by course analysis where we would look at course titles, specific course objectives, descriptions, and even to some extent experiential requirements for graduation requirements. So we would start there and say, does duplication exist? And so we would do this in a 2-step process to evaluate whether or not duplication is present. Then the second question is the duplication unreasonable? And one of the first factors, as outlined by statute, is looking at workforce need. Some additional factors that we would look at are things like modality and geographic distance, the student population and demand for the program. So demand for the program in terms of students applying and not necessarily having enough seats at the existing programs. Faculty capacity, certainly institutional mission, and the potential for collaboration. Is the duplication unreasonable and does it cause harm? So this is where we've spent already some time talking with the Program Review Process Advisory Council. What are examples of harm? When does duplication that is unreasonable cause harm? So we have some examples of this for you all to think about and provide feedback on. There's harm to the state by an inefficient use of state resources by allowing two or more institutions to run similar programs when maybe the best use of resources is allowing 1 or 2 institutions to expand their programs to meet a state need. Certainly harm to the state by thinking about our interference with our HBCU responsibilities. A harm to students might be this consideration about limited experiential opportunities. And let me give you some examples. Some of you have seen this in commission reviews around clinical placements. So if a new program becomes operational, does that saturate the availability of clinical placement sites, particularly for licensure or accreditation? And would that then delay students in completing their program or not give them the opportunity to meet industry requirements for a particular field? And then certainly harm to students that may be demonstrated through an increased student cost or time to degree, depending on how the duplication might present itself. So we would ask ourselves these questions as part of the analysis and consider these factors to determine whether or not the duplication is unreasonable. That's the summary of unreasonable duplication, the analysis that we have outlined, some of the considerations. Before I move into unnecessary duplication, let me stop and see if you have questions about unreasonable duplication that would cause harm to the state or student. It's a bit, I mean, so we've been thinking about it for months. You all may be seeing this for the first time, or first or second time. So I recognize this is a lot. We're going to be coming back to you again and again with more information on this. So recognize this is the first time you might be seeing some of this consideration.
And Emily, I think that's a really good point, or Dr. Dow, I apologize, that this is a first look for the commissioners today. None of us have seen this before today. Then the goal is to go to your collaborative, legislatively mandated work group for the folks in higher ed, the segments who actually do this day to day, and then eventually it would come back to us for approval. But this is just a first look.
Absolutely, exactly. And in the commission book are draft regulations. So you'll see what kind of the regulations would look like. Right. So what I'm explaining here is kind of layman's terms, and then in the book you have a draft.
But again, first look, no vote today. Practitioners are going to get a chance to weigh in and focus on it, and eventually you'll bring it back to us for a vote.
Absolutely, exactly.
Thank you.
Dr. Dow, one quick, just clarifying question. I'm looking at bullet 3 on the harm examples. When you say limited experiential opportunities, you basically mean, for example, for things that require some type of clinical placement or experiential part, that it would constrain the capacity for students to do that if there was a new program.
Exactly. So again, we have talked a little bit about this with the PRPAC in recent meetings. One example, to kind of take it out of the health context, one example that was presented by one of our presidents was flight training, that there are required hours, not just for pilots, but certainly for engineers to be able to work. And so those are those kinds of experiential learning opportunities that are required through either an industry, accreditor, licensing board, and the like. So I don't want to limit it just to the health fields. Okay.
And I have a question.
Yes, please, Commissioner Howe.
So the draft that you are now proposing brings me back to the point where we had Morgan State University objecting to a program for MICA, and we took a vote, and it was not approved for them to MICA to have the course. Then our learned Assistant Attorney General, Ms. Ward, told us we didn't have to vote on that when it was to come back before the commission, and it was approved for MICA to have the course. It's my recollection. So how does the new draft clarify for us whether or not we have to consider the duplication as at all?
Absolutely. And so that goes back to the earlier slide, and I appreciate the confusion here that Commissioner Warmack identified. Let's, whoops. Oh goodness, so sorry. Stay with me. Okay, this you don't see my cursor. Ignore the second bullet around basic or common programs and core disciplines. What stands now is that undergraduate programs using existing resources, so there's a little bit of a caveat, which is why we need to clarify this a little bit. So again, appreciate the confusion, opportunity for us to make appropriate changes. So let me say this out loud. Undergraduate programs using existing resources are not unreasonably duplicative. So in the instance of Micah's proposal for interior design, it was an undergraduate program using existing resources.
Oh, I got it.
And therefore is not considered unreasonably duplicative.
All right, now I understand. Sometimes it takes me a while. Thank you.
No, I don't think we have been clear. So I appreciate this dialogue so that we can be crystal clear in the final set of regulations and particularly guidance.
Dr. Dow, what the other program? Yeah, go ahead.
It's a good question, Commissioner Howe, and that, just to be clear, and I'd like Ms. Ward to weigh in on this as our Assistant Attorney General, what Dr. Dow said was already in the statute. These regulations that we're interpreting are, that the agency will be writing with collaboration from others are fleshing out the statute, but that was already in the law. So Ms. Ward, do you want to just weigh in a little bit, since it was your opinion on the Micah Morgan issue?
Right, that's right. Yeah, that was already in the statute. So with statutes, as you know, they're like the skeleton and the regulations are the meat. So at this point, we're just trying to put some meat on the bones. And the bones, if you will, allow my analogy, have been out there for a while. So it's time now for the commission to go ahead and put some meat on these bones. So that's what we're trying to do right now. So Judge Howe, the Michael Morgan issue was a matter of they were using existing resources. So that's why there was no duplication. So that's sort of what that issue was. So that's why we do need to go ahead and put these regulations out there so it's clear to the community as well as the agency and to the commission. So that was the whole sort of issue that with that, as well as what we're trying to do now.
All right. Commissioner Howe, any other questions? Dr. Rai, did you want to say something?
Yes, I think it's already covered, but Dr. Dow, can you give example for another program, undergraduate program that was not using new resources that was also approved?
Correct, yeah. So just recently, we received a proposal from Capital Technology University for a proposed program, and I will not get the title quite accurately, but it was in aviation engineering and management, something along those lines. UMES had objected, but this is when we realized that, in fact, per the statutory changes as part of House Bill 1244, objections for existing programs really should only be at the graduate level. So there is revised statutory language, so inferring that undergraduate programs using existing resources are not considered unreasonably duplicative. So I'm sorry, Secretary, back to your point. We did entertain a similar situation in recent weeks with a proposal from Capital Technology University in an undergraduate aviation management engineering proposed program. They provided sufficient evidence to demonstrate that they were using existing resources, and therefore we allowed the program to move forward.
So just to clarify macro, per the advice of our Assistant Attorney General, Ms. Ward, neither the agency nor our commission has any discretion in this matter. This was a choice, a policy choice that was made by the legislature back in 2024 through the law that we're discussing today to say that undergraduate institutions that use existing state resources are not duplicative and are not do not come before the agency or the commission to be challenged. Is that a fair characterization, Ms. Ward?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thanks. I just want to be I want everyone, because it's a really good question and important point for all of us to understand. Commissioner Thompson.
Yes, I have a different point. I didn't
Okay.
want to stop your thought process.
Thank you. Yes, I guess I've beat this one to death. Please move on to a different.
No. It's very helpful. The discussion is very helpful. I'm just trying to clarify for my thoughts. Harm example, bullet 4, increase student cost or time to degree. Does that mean that if the proposed program increases student costs or time? Is that what you're trying to say here?
It would be harm to students or the state. So in that instance, it could be hypothetical, or it could be presumed for both students who would be enrolling in the proposed program, or even students who are enrolling in the existing program. So it's harm to students broadly, not just for students enrolled or potentially enrolling in existing programs. It's students in general.
Okay.
So it could very well be, if we would allow a proposed program that is duplicative to move forward, it would be a harm that we would want to consider is cost or time, cost to students or time to degree.
Okay, thank you. And
so does the duplicative program, could the duplicative program
increase
cost or time to degree?
And my other thinking is around the faculty capacity as an additional factor. Could you please speak to that? Is it, I don't know if you mean it's not enough faculty or too few or too many. Could you speak to that?
Absolutely. And this is more about faculty specialties. Specialized faculty. We have, particularly at the graduate level, we have entertained or have heard arguments that duplication could once again saturate the faculty market. There are only so many faculty who are qualified and are able and willing to teach at the graduate level in a particular domain. If we allow a second, third, fourth program, are we then creating an ecosystem where there is competition for specialized faculty that again would be problematic and would be considered unreasonable duplication? Does that help clarify?
I'm still processing it. Maybe as we move down the road, and see this again, it'll be a little more clearer to me. But
not a problem.
I do understand what you're stating. Yeah.
Well, and again, these are helpful questions for us to clarify in the regulatory language or in guidance to make sure we all read the same words in exactly the same way. So
Thank you.
helpful. Thank you. To the extent that we can do that with legal words. Okay, that's unreasonable duplication. I'd like to move on to unnecessary duplication, which has a slightly different analysis and a slightly different purpose. Unnecessary duplication applies only to public senior institutions, whereas unreasonable duplication applies to all of our colleges and universities, public and private, and even to some extent those not even receiving state funds. So unnecessary duplication only applies to public institutions. It is based on equal education opportunity obligations. So again, this is based in federal law and federal obligations. So it has different standards and different expectations. And it is to prevent traditionally white institutions from duplicating historically Black institutions. Finally, it is to ensure alignment with state and federal law. So again, this part of both parts of the regulations were drafted with AAG input. This part specifically absolutely has been drafted with AAG input to make sure that there is alignment with federal law. So some of what I'm about to present in this section doesn't have much wiggle room in terms of how we do this analysis, but in explaining it and making sure that the standards are clear, we want to make sure that we are fully transparent in what we mean by unnecessary duplication. So step one would be to ask the question, are the programs broadly similar? Unlike unreasonable duplication, this is a lower threshold to meet duplication. It is about just broadly similar programs. We would likely use the same indicators, things like learning objectives, competencies, employment outcomes, licensure, title, SIP code, accreditation, but we wouldn't necessarily go into complete compare contrast about whether or not the two programs are completely overlapping. The question is, are they broadly similar? If they are, then we would ask the question, is there a sound educational justification for the duplication to exist? So again, this is language from the Fordyce case. And so a sound educational justification for the duplication. Some considerations that have that we've entertained in the past and are worth considering in our formal framework are things like geographic distance. Is there a workforce need? This concern about clinical or experiential opportunities, unique educational resources, the department or institutional's reputation, and partnerships with industry, government, or education. So there are some new considerations here, particularly as we think about HBCUs and TWIs, and thinking about those opportunities for expansion of existing programs and unique programs. So the question again, is there a sound educational justification for the duplication to exist? And these would be some of the considerations that we have outlined in the draft regulations. Before I move into a summary slide, let me stop there and see if there are questions about unnecessary duplication that is in violation of the state's equal education opportunities. Again, I recognize that this is a lot. Things for you all to be thinking about. Okay, let me give you a quick summary. Unnecessary duplication versus unreasonable duplication. Unreasonable duplication applies to all sectors, whereas unnecessary is a consideration for only our public senior institutions. Graduate level programs, different focus. Collaboration is a focus for a consideration for unreasonable duplication, but it's not a consideration for unnecessary duplication. And just an overview of the review process, the questions we need to be asking to determine if there is duplication, is it unreasonable, versus are the programs broadly similar? If yes, is there an educational justification for the duplication? And so how do we answer those questions? What are the standards? What are the checklists that we will be using? What's the evidence that we will be using to answer those questions? And so that is what the regulations are trying to outline, is the details in the review process.
I think that's a very, I'm sorry, Dr. I think that's a very helpful summary slide, and I may have missed it, but in the voluminous materials, I don't remember, was that one that you added recently?
I don't believe so. I do think it was.
It was in there. All right, fair enough.
I think so.
I'm going to put it on my bulletin board. I'm going to find it in my big notebook and put it on my bulletin board. I think that's a good one.
Well, can we do a little asterisk, because this is up for editing and up for, I mean, this is kind of the framework. I don't think that this framework changes all that drastically, but do want to reserve the ability to maybe make updates. So it's not set in stone quite.
No, of course. But I mean, I think you'll obviously be writing the regulations, but just as a macro, who's it applicable to, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's a good reminder. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, totally fine. Thank you. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. And what we can do is we can make sure that we, since this is a helpful way to visualize and organize the information, we can work to continue this kind of presentation.
Great. I think we have two questions. First, Commissioner Thompson, and then Commissioner Howe.
Thank you so much. Just in the back of my mind, I'm wondering, as we get clearer and toward the final definition, is there a way to have a scenario that explains, oh, well, this is what we mean by unreasonable duplication, where there will be
Sure.
of, quick scenario, where institution A did so and so and so and so, and then here comes institution B, and because of these things, it could be ruled as unreasonable duplication, and likewise for unnecessary duplication. Just wondering, is that something that could be considered by the work group or going into
Sure.
the work group?
What we could probably do is certainly we can walk through some scenarios with the work group and have them bring up some specific examples that may apply. We can also look historically on objections and proposals that we've received that could demonstrate some of these examples. So we can
using the institution name, of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we
Dr.
can work
Dow,
to give you specifics.
if I could, it's a good question from Commissioner Thompson. I think, again, clarity is helpful to make things as objective as possible. I think that maybe the one thing I'll say to all my commissioners, my fellow commissioners, is there will be discretion. There will just have to be. There will be no way we can totally define all the possibles. I think getting clear on our definitions, I think it's going to be helpful, but I think, if we look at the numbers, we're hopefully going to see only a few of these. And I think and they'll probably be the hardest and the most atypical. And so I think there will be a bit of debate. There will be some of these words that we all see a little differently. And I think we should just be prepared and leave room for that. So I think any clarification is helpful, but there will always be a little bit of gray. So I just wanted to say that out loud. And again, that's why the 12 amazing people on this call are paid no bucks to make some of these decisions when they come up.
I agree with both of your points, Commissioner Thompson and Agu, and I would just I know that Ms. Ward, our Assistant Attorney General, and her team are going to be instrumental in this, and I think it's really important for something this important that our Attorney General's office colleagues be involved with this and
Yes.
giving guidance, because absolutely, I think what you're hearing, Dr. Dow and Ms. Ward, is this commission really wants to get it right. And we really want clarity and guidance to the extent that that's possible. At the same time, as Vice Chair Agu said, there's always going to be some interpretation, which is why you have 12 human minds deciding case by case. But the more clarity, the better. And we really do appreciate our Attorney General's office lawyers being involved step by step with this. So thank you in advance, Dr. Dow and Ms. Ward. And Ms. Layton, if you end up being involved, because it's really important to get this right. Commissioner Howe.
Well, in line with everything that was just said, is the standard of proof for us preponderance of the evidence or beyond a reasonable doubt? Because they're very, very different things. And I would like for that to be clarified as well.
That is a good question. I am going to turn that I think that goes beyond my expertise. And maybe it's something I can discuss with Ms. Ward, so that we have clarity on that front. I don't want to put Ms. Ward on the spot here. I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, I think it's something that needs to be considered and clarified for us when we will be voting on things in the future.
Judge Howe, I would probably say, just off the top of my head, it's not beyond a reasonable doubt. It's probably, if you're looking for a standard, at most it would be preponderance. It's definitely not beyond a reasonable doubt. But so that's my thinking.
Okay, thank you.
And it would be also helpful, Ms. Ward, and I know we've discussed this before, is if the commission is reviewing the secretary's decision, is the commission reviewing it de novo, like for the first time, not even looking at what the agency and the secretary decided, or do we grant some deference to the agency and the secretary's position? I think that would also be helpful clarification.
Yeah, because there is a decision, I don't think it's de novo because there is a decision that you are looking at. So I think you're more so in a reviewing commission, a court sort of situation. So I don't think it's de novo.
Excellent. If that could all be spelled out to us in some advice, I think that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes, I guess along that same point and going to the limited experience that I've had since serving on the commission, my personal tendency would be to take into account of how the secretary ruled. And I felt as though it was our responsibility to either accept it or have a whole lot of evidence not to accept what the secretary has stated. Now, if I just want to make sure that that's what we're supposed to do.
Well, I think that's sort of what I was getting at with
what I was
my
thinking.
legalese de novo. That's
Yes.
exactly the principle at play. Like, do you give some deference to the secretary and his
Yes.
team because they dove into it, or do you look at it de novo, newly with fresh eyes? And I think
Yeah.
that's where we're going to need guidance in writing from our assistant attorney general.
Well,
just
I
want to
mean,
be
on
clear.
that note, I think you, as any type of review in court, you can look at it fresh, but in your own regulations, it states that if your majority of your commission members sitting ultimately cannot make a decision, the secretary's decision stands. So your regulations are clear that there is a decision out there. So it's not like there is no decision. The secretary's decision is out there, but you as a reviewing body certainly get to make your own decision. But sure, I can certainly put something in there.
Okay,
That
thank you
would be
so
great.
much.
I think you can see there's a lot of interest, Ms. Ward. So having something in writing that we can all rely on would be great. Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Okay, Dr. Dow, did you have more slides? Here, one more slide?
One more slide very quickly. Next up. So this is the first, as I had shared earlier, the first time for the commission to weigh in. So your feedback is really helpful. With kind of your blessing, we will move this over to the Program Review Process Advisory Council for further discussion, further clarification, input from the campuses. And then either we'll come back with an update if we see that this might take a bit longer than expected. Or we'll come back with some drafted regulations with their after their review and approval, and we can move ahead. So those are kind of the next steps. We will also, it's not on this slide, but talk with some other entities, sister agencies as well, who are invested in post-secondary education, particularly Department of Labor, Department of Commerce, so that they can opine on this work and provide necessary input. This is our kind of protocol with these kinds of regulations. I just want to put that out there and make sure that the commission is okay that we are first presenting it to you all, then taking it to advisory councils or other subject matter experts for input, and then we bring it back to you all for additional review. Just want to make sure that this feels right and the appropriate approach, as opposed to just simply going straight to an advisory counselor or straight to a subject matter expert. We prepare a whole bunch of things, we bring it to you, and you all may have wildly different ideas on how we should approach something. We want to give you all the kind of first option to provide feedback before we take it out to the general public.
Madam Chair, I, for one, really appreciate that approach. I think that really gives us a chance to make sure that our imprint is very clear on whatever the final outcome is. So thank you for that. I appreciate it, and I would really like to see you continue it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioner. Okay.
That is it for me.
Now, thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners. Very helpful conversation and very helpful feedback. Much appreciated. Thank you.
So we have about a half an hour left. I'm very mindful of everyone's time, and we have 3 more agenda items. We have Vice Chair Agu and team talking about an update on the Maryland State Plan. We have some performance data assets and remedial education description from our Deputy Secretary and Dr. Schmertz and team. And then we also have an update on the summit. I'm going to defer Commissioner Agu. I know you're going to be leading the state plan. Do you want to go next and just be
Yes.
mindful? We have half an hour to cover 3 things.
And basically, this is really meant to be a primer for fellow commissioners to give feedback. And so I'm looking at you, Deputy Secretary. I think what we can do is do a very quick kind of overview primer, and then we will send a survey to commissioners. And Elena, please tell me if I have this right, to get their kind of point feedback that I think will save a bunch of time for the meeting. Because there are some particular things we want to make sure for the plan that we have commissioners direct feedback. And then Madam Deputy Secretary.
Yeah, I'll jump in on the agenda items if that's okay. Thank you so much, Vice Chair Agu. So one of the things that we would like to propose is tabling the presentation on our data dashboards to November, and we might do it a 2-part series rather than rushing through 3 items. We'll do our best to be brief on the state plan update. We do want to continue the engagement. We hope that commissioners have just a little more energy to provide us with some initial feedback, but we'll follow up with a couple of surveys to make sure that we do get your direct commentary. But if it's okay with you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, we'll go ahead and table the data dashboard presentation. I do want to recognize Dr. Schmertz and Eliza Levin for the work that they did to prepare. We just feel like it'll be better served if we wait until November.
That's fine. Thank you.
Perfect. So I'll go ahead and pull up the slides and turn it to you, Vice Chair Agu, and we'll be joined by
Sure.
Dr. Ann Kellogg as well for this presentation.
Sure, and I will go fast. I think my fellow commissioners, this is really a point where we want to make sure to get your feedback. And so I'll just wait for the slides to come up. I'll give you a quick process overview for where we are in the plan process. Talk about one, probably arguably the most important part of the question that we really want to get your feedback on, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Kellogg. And so basically, you all know the state plan. We have to do it by law. And really, we want to make sure that we are using this process to make sure that we use that plan to its fullest effect to create the higher ed system that we need in the state of Maryland and engage our partners in doing such. What you're seeing here is really a timeline, a lot of which you have seen. The big kind of process things that I'll say are what you are seeing kind of in summer 2025. We kick off with our steering committee, over 25 members from institutions, industry, community-based organizations, all giving feedback on various topics from equity and attainment to return on investment or value. We'll be talking about kind of research and development, economics, as well as some collaboration. But again, to make sure that it's not a black box process. Similarly, you all are getting regular updates per these meetings on what is happening. This is another one of those. And this is what's happening in fall. And this really is going to be spring of 2026. We're going to be hopefully having a beginning draft that we can socialize before the end of the year with our friends at Annapolis, as well as many others, so that we can get all the feedback necessary so that we can deliver a plan by our date of July 2026, so we can begin to use 2026 to actually put things in motion. This is just the timeline of things that will happen. But right now we are getting all the stakeholder feedback, so we don't leave any good idea on the cutting room floor, and to make sure that everyone is kind of bought in and no one is surprised. I think you've heard what we want from this steering committee. We want their ideas and we want their buy-in. If we go to the next slide. Sure, I'll come up in a second. Can we go to, I won't go through this, you've heard this before. I want to go to where we're talking about value. I'm not sure which slide if value is discussed. There we go. Thank you. So what we have come to, and this really came from last year, is really we're going to have 3 big goals with this plan. Equity being, and making sure that we leave no Maryland behind, goes across all of them. But we have 3. One is increasing post-secondary attainment. We all kind of are very familiar with that. There's goal number 3, making sure that we're creating kind of that we're getting the innovation and research and economic competitive outcomes that we want. I'm looking at Commissioner Williams, even though he can't tell I'm looking at him. This is very much the world that he lives in. This is Maryland Higher Ed is a huge economic development engine. We want to make sure that we have plans and goals around, around that. But where we really want commission feedback, at least per today, is on this question of value. Right now, we know that whether it's parents, whether it's students, whether it's employers, there's a big debate about the value of higher education. And I think our goal is not to act like it's not happening. Our goal is to make sure that we can answer the question. And so what we have begun to do, and we were in Indianapolis last week with Illumina Foundation, is begin to put rigor on what is the definition of value for the state, for individual students. And what Dr. Kellogg is going to walk you through is some ways that other states are doing that. And what we'll want from commissioners is your feedback. Well, what would you want to see as part of that definition, so that, again, we can give transparency to students, to their families, to the state, so that we know what we're getting for the amazing investments that we are making. Madam Deputy Secretary, did I miss anything before I turn it over to Dr. Kellogg?
No, the one thing that I will reiterate as I switch over the slides is that we have gotten feedback from the steering committee on the vision, the principles, and the goals. We will distribute a survey to the commission after this meeting that will ask them for their feedback on this current version that you have here. And similarly, later in November, we'll ask you for your feedback on what Dr. Kellogg is presenting today. So very grateful that we'll have multiple opportunities. So with that, let me go ahead and turn it over.
Let me just say one other thing, which is what Dr. Burnham said. This is another version of that approach. We do not want this commission to see a plan without their feedback or their imprint. So part of the reason that we are doing this is to make sure that you have input now and you will see a version at the end. And again, we want no surprises. We want to make sure for all of our stakeholders that is the way it is. So that's why you will get this. We would have done it all during the meeting, but we had a lot to do. So we really ask, when you get this survey, take that time, hopefully 15, 20 minutes, but your feedback will be invaluable to this process, because we will bring this back to you for an actual vote for adoption in the future. And we do not want that to be brand new. Sorry, Madam Deputy Secretary, go ahead.
That's exactly right. This is, at the end of the day, a plan that has to be adopted by the commission, and we definitely want your voices to be reflected, and we hope that we've been able to do that so far. So please stay tuned for that survey. Hopefully we'll get it to you actually by the end of today while this is still fresh. So with that, let me go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Kellogg, who will be presenting a framework for measuring return on investment here in Maryland. Dr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Secretary and Vice Chair Agu, and Commissioner Motz and Commissioners. Happy to be with you here today. I'm going to be very brief and just try to consolidate some information around the slide deck here. If we can advance to the next slide. The steering committee met and beginning on page 153 in your commission book, there's a memo that kind of summarizes the steering committee meeting, and the slide deck starts on page 64. The meeting was focused on component 2 of the state plan, ensuring every degree and credential has value. And specifically, we were really focused in on how return on investment can be incorporated into that value component. Drawing your attention to this slide here, we presented information that supported really 4 different threads or frameworks that could be considered around what it means to have value or a return on investment, where we focus on both public and private returns, thinking about what is that I in investment, what is that C in cost, and really who are we looking at when we do these types of return on investment calculations. If we can go to the next slide. Thank you. Underpinning this was one of the really amazing resources we have in the state of Maryland. We have a very robust Maryland Longitudinal Data System Center. When we want to know how our college graduates are performing in the labor market, when we want to know what labor sectors they're in, including those lighthouse sectors, we have up and at our disposal the Maryland College Labor Sector and Wage Explorer. We are able to look at that private return or the wages earned by students. And so we presented that as a tool that could help inform our discussion around return on investment. If we want to advance 2 slides, We quickly shifted, that one's perfect right there. We quickly shifted the conversation away from just the immediate private returns or the wages earned by individuals to think more broadly about the public investment in higher education, and presented some concepts around how to measure public investment in education, noting that Texas has found that for every $1 that they have invested in post-secondary education, they estimate that they get $4 back in return. So we provided some measures of those financial benefits, human capital benefits, and the social benefits that come from higher education. That is really, I'm going to kind of stop there with my remarks. The slide deck actually summarizes a lot of the data points that we used with the meeting, so that I can be brief and take any questions you may have.
So is it our understanding that you'll come back to us later for us to come in specifically on items that you are presenting now?
I believe we will be sending a survey out that kind of gives you the full array of choices to be made around calculating return on investment. And you'll be able to comment on that as we focus in on that method for component 2.
All right.
And what we'll also do, Commissioner Burnham, is we will send out the slides for the full presentation that we would have gone through if we had more time. What you'll see in Dr. Kellogg's portion is specific ways to do this. So financial benefits to individuals, public sector-based ROI. How much ROI does the state see for its investment in program by program? What are the social welfare benefits? For example, we see benefits in terms of health and things like that, or lack of benefits spent. And so there'll be definitions of each of those. And then what the survey will do is ask for your feedback for how you prioritize those, your comments, things that maybe we missed that you'd want to see as part of this definition. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Wonderful. Is there anything else on this topic?
I think we're good to go.
We're good? Okay. Excellent. So we're going to be skipping the data dashboard until next month. So we're on our final agenda item. Do I have that right? Anything else, Deputy Secretary Levanos? No? Okay. Dr. Dow, if you could give us an update on the Student Success Summit, which is just a few weeks away.
Yes, just a few weeks away. We are confirming speakers. As a reminder to everybody, the Student Success Summit will be held November 13th and November 14th. It will follow a similar format to what we did last year, in which we will have a Thursday evening event with presidents only and board chairs for some discussion, and then a full day event on Friday. This year, we are focusing on more contemporary issues, things like leveraging AI, the importance of advanced consideration in student supports, and the future of higher education in general. So we're super excited. A registration link will be circulated by the end of this week. We have informed campuses that they will be able to send campus teams as they did last year. And we're looking forward to releasing a full program agenda in the next couple of days. So we're super excited. Should be a good event. We'll be in the greater Baltimore area. We're finalizing some contractual things, and then we will be able to share the location, but greater Baltimore area. And looking forward to it. So more to come this week. And we do want to encourage, obviously, all of our commissioners to attend. If you do attend, we may give you a job, for example, like leading some table discussions. So excited to have the participation of commissioners to sit with campus leadership and talk through some really important topics for higher education. Thank you.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Dow, one quick question. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Mats, go ahead. I was just going to ask, again, great. It was an amazing event last year. Obviously, we'll have institutions there. I know also last year we had philanthropic partners, some community-based organizations. I assume those types of organizations are also welcome. I can imagine as well, when I think about our steering committee, we have a number of industry organizations. So I can imagine the Maryland Chamber, Maryland Tech Council, who may also want to be in the room for this. I assume that is welcome, but I just want to ask.
Yes, exactly. And some of those folks are going to be speakers and presenters as well. So not only in the room, but participants and engaged in the discussions. Again, this will be similar to last year, an engaging opportunity, not just speaker talking at you, but opportunity for table discussions, like job convenings, so breakout sessions and the like. So interactive with potentially some homework as we had last year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Dr. Dow, you mentioned a registration link. You'll send that to commissioners as well?
Correct. That will likely come from Ms. Wing.
Great. So we commissioners are expecting a lot of homework. We've got the registration link for the summit, which is the evening of Thursday, November 13th, and all day on Friday, November 14th. We're also going to be, the deputy secretary is going to send the survey that Commissioner Agu mentioned, the deputy secretary or somebody on her team with respect to the Maryland State Plan. Dr. Dow, you're also going to send the summary slides from program approval. Any other follow-up items on the agency's end or any follow-up items that commissioners might want from the agency? No? All right, well, that's a lot. It's been a very productive meeting. Next on the agenda is public comment. Ms. Wynn, do we have any public comment today?
We do not.
All right. Well, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Is there a second? All right. All those in favor? Aye. All right. I can't imagine there are any nays or abstentions. All right. Unanimously approved motion to adjourn. Thank you, as always, to the agency staff team and to my fellow commissioners for their time and attention today. Hope to see many of you at the summit in a few weeks.
Thank you, Dr. Rye, for being Dr. Rye. Thank you. All that great information that you all put together. I read through the budget very meticulously. I want you to know.
Excellent. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.